Okay, guys, so we are back to our social studies weekly, and we've been talking about the history of education and just kind of how it has changed over the years. And so we read about education then and now, where we talked about the same school, but we talked about it. It was a story of when in the 1920s when the girl went to school, and then there was a story about in today's world when the girl went to school, and how kind of we saw how different it was. Yesterday we talked about the history of education, and it kind of went through the stages of the history of education and where it started. So we talked about how it started with ancient schools, and then we went to early American schools, the first public school, more schools, and then schools today. Today we're going to be talking about, is education a right? So we're going to be talking about the rights of education. So you will need your studies weekly to follow along. If you don't have your studies weekly, that's okay. Just listen. You will have some questions, or actually you're going to have a little writing piece that I want you to work on today after you get done reading.
The Constitution of the United States lists the rights of each citizen. But does the Constitution promise us the right to an education? A few weeks ago, you learned about the Bill of Rights. They are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The right to an education is not listed in those rights, but the 10th Amendment gives states a lot of power. The 10th Amendment says that each state is responsible for any power the Constitution does not give to the national government. That includes education. Each state is responsible for its own schools. In most states, this means that public schools are paid for with taxes. Schools need money for buildings, supplies, and equipment. They also need money to pay the people who work in the schools. In Texas, each school gets money from the state. Each school gets a different amount of money. That's because the money each school gets depends on how many students come to school each day. This is just one of the reasons it is important not to miss school. Even though the state gives the schools money, they do not make all the decisions about how the school should be run. Each public school is part of a district. A school board leads each district. Citizens vote for the people on the school board. People who live and work in the community may be on the school board. People who want to be on the school board care about the children of the community. They help make decisions about how to make sure all students get a good education. People in communities work together so you and your friends have good teachers and everything you need to learn. All children in the United States have a right to an education. You cannot be kept away from school because of your race, your religion, or your physical differences. But you also have a responsibility to do your best in school. Someday, you may be a leader in your community, and the children in your community will be counting on you.
Okay. So we've learned a lot of different things about school, mainly focusing on the fact of how schools have changed over time. So, sorry about that. So we have learned about the history of education. We have seen how education has changed throughout the years. So I want you to write me 4 or 5 sentences describing to me how schools have changed from back then to now. So I'm going to say that again. You need to write me you're going to write 4 or 5 sentences describing how schools have changed over time. Okay, so you can just think of everything we've read. If you want to go back and watch some of the social studies videos from this week and last week to help you. You can look at the information in the studies weekly, but you're telling me you're telling me how schools have changed over time. And I want 4 or 5 sentences. I do not just want one sentence. I want 4 or 5 sentences describing how schools have changed over time. All right.